Hello folks, this is the Gently Beautiful and Moronic Hack with another movie review, and this time I have seen the highly mixed and slightly controversial, not really, but slightly, Supergirl film by DC Studios. So, I'll cut to the chase. What did I think of the movie? Is it worthy of the criticisms lobbied against it from everyone from the mainstream critics to all the fans on social media? Well, here is my one statement that solidifies the entire movie for me. The movie is very uneven because it starts off very weak and by the numbers, but by the end of the movie, it greatly improves, and I was left with an entertaining movie that got me to at least have some thought-provoking ideas in my head. However, first impressions are everything, and the film, unfortunately, does not make the greatest of first impressions. So that is why there's been such a mixed reception for this movie, because it really is a mixed bag of a film. Primarily comes down to these two facets, and those facets are that, especially in the beginning, it really tries to put you in where Kara is in her life. And to the film's credit, it does a good job of showing that Kara is very depressed. And her only way to cope with it is to just plan the planet wherever there is a red sun and drink to a stupor, pass out, wake up with a hangover, and then do the same thing on another planet in her filthy spaceship. Very, very filthy. And in that regard, the film does a good job portraying that our hero, or heroine rather, is not in a good place at the moment, especially since the film takes place within the week of her birthday, and that is bringing up a lot of traumatic memories from when Supergirl used to live with her family back in Argo City, which was used to be one of the final survivors of Krypton. And because of that, and as well as establishing the driving force of the adventure that Supergirl will be in with the main villain of Krem, and the very true grit story that her companion character Rufy puts Kara through. A lot of the beginning is not going through the motions, is more so been there, done that, in the type of sci-fi weirdness, or trying to put the viewer into this very ugly cosmic world of DC, which on paper I actually don't mind. I would love to see this very ugly side of the cosmic DC universe. In fact, that's a very well-known established part of the DC universe in the comics, especially if you read any of the 90s Lobo comics. However, a lot of that is mainly used to just have a bit of juvenile humor, silly jokes, or just uninteresting action moments, which the beginning is filled with. And if the whole film was like that, then I probably would have been one of those people who would have said, yeah, this movie isn't good. But once we get into the bombed out, war-torn planet that the second act of the film takes place, that's when the film really starts to turn things over, and it starts to be less focused on trying to have silly cosmic nonsense, and actually focus on the story at hand with Supergirl's traumatic past and her trying to come to terms and deal with this extreme loss and depression that she has not been healthily dealing with ever since she fled her home city of Argo City. Which that leads you to also add that one of my favorite elements of the film is that I love how the writers of the film decided to keep her original Silver Age story with how Argo City was a surviving city from from Krypton when it exploded, and the city prospered for a while, survived at least in space, until the kryptonite that was underneath the city started to uh, poison the soil that was everywhere and make people sick, which is something that which is exactly what happens in the original Supergirl origin story all the way back from the 1950s. So I very much like that they kept that for the most part intact. I really did. And when the film very much exclusively focused on Supergirl or Kara's backstory and her inner turmoil, especially with the fact that she is put in a situation where she is put in a position that she is forced to act despite the fact that she would rather do anything else. And so you see her go into this heroic journey of her overcoming and also making peace with the loss that she went through in her past, and finding a new purpose, a new mission, and a new reason to live in her current day. And that's the main part of the story that driven me to be excited to watch it all the way to the end. And as well, I do want to also add that the action moments improve after the second act. The film starts to become less like a carbon copy of True Grit and starts to be its own thing. And I enjoyed it because of that. It's not just a cheap knockoff of True Grit, it carries some elements of the original Western and tells its own story that feels more appropriate with it. And I also want to add in that Lobo, who I very much enjoyed seeing on screen, the 3 scenes that he's really in, I wish he was in just at least one more and had some involvement with the main plot, but for what we have, I think DC knocked out of the park. The writers, and of course adding Jason Momoa being the character he should have been in the beginning once he entered the world of DC movies. Fantastic job as Lobo, and glad to see him represented exactly as he should be, straight from the pages of DC Comics. Now, to add one more criticism that is not necessarily about the story or any of the technical aspects of the film, but a lot of the mixed opinions and people not really resonating with this film, I believe, stems from the fact that the screenwriters decided to adapt Tom King's World of Tomorrow. And Tom King, as a comic book writer, regardless of what you believe, if he's a great writer or he's overrated, regardless of that, one thing you can universally agree is that he tells very dark, very mature, and sometimes very depressing stories. And you can feel that in this movie, and it's done really well. Problem is, that doesn't make for a good reintroduction of this new Supergirl. And I don't know about you, but if you want to have your cool new female hero that has gonna have mass appeal, you don't want her first story to be about dealing with one of the greatest tragedy in life. This is not to say that you shouldn't do that, because as a concept, that naturally you would want to do a story of Supergirl dealing with that part of her life. But the cost of making this type of film, especially based on a work of Tom King, is that the story that is given is very well done and is very well told, but it's not appropriate for at least a introductory film of this new version of Supergirl that DC is gonna want to push as one of the big characters of their universe. If anything, a better way to have better mass appeal and to have everyone, especially young women and girls, enjoy Supergirl, the best call would have been to make more of a coming of age story and a little bit of fish out of water, with Kara arriving on Earth and tell that story of how she adapted or how she attempted to adapt to Earth's society and do it in a more fun way while still adding your superheroics. I believe that would have been a better call and a lot more enjoyable for people to be won over with Supergirl, to see her in a more familiar element as the fish out of water. But we didn't get that, and so we get this more mature and dark story that focuses more on her inner turmoil, which again, it is actually a great idea, especially with her origin, but it's too soon. To use a perfect example, you need to have Star Wars before you have Empire Strikes Back. And Supergirl, to me, because I don't see it as a sequel to Superman, it's his own thing. Supergirl feels like the Empire Strikes Back to a Supergirl movie that didn't happen or that we didn't see. And that is why not a lot of people are won over by this movie, because it's kind of a heavy movie. I mean, the big villain that Supergirl is facing is a literal alien trafficker. There's nothing really fun about it, and the actor who plays the villain Krem, I'm not gonna say he's gonna be there the all-timers of one of the best villains, but he does an amazing job of being a scumbag that you want to see him die, and with no repercussions of it. He's just that despicable of a villain, which is great for the story told. I just wish that it wasn't done in this film, and that maybe you could have saved this story. You could do your Woman of Tomorrow adaptation for the sequel, when you have the more dark and mature sequel, but we didn't have that. We have the movie that we have now, and for what it is, it's an uneven mess. But it's an uneven mess that at least attempts to be ambitious with the storyline it adapts. It is a flawed but good movie, and it's definitely a lot more unique than any of your run-of-the-hill superhero movie. But because of the unevenness with the very weak beginning of the film and some of the more by the numbers creative decisions in terms of action, setting, and humor that is sparse, especially again within the beginning or first half of the film, it can make people believe that, oh, this movie is nothing special, when really the Kara herself is what makes it special. The main character is what makes this special. It's just a shame that wasn't apparent, or that wasn't focused in the forefront at the beginning, or at the very least, we should have had a film that made us won over Kara as a character for us to enjoy and like and laugh with, because she's a fun character. Supergirl is a fun, very joyous character, and then we can get to a more darker and mature story for her to be in and deal with her own personal drama. Nevertheless, I enjoyed it, but I also understand if either what I'm describing does not interest you or you entirely disagree with me. I definitely get it, but I enjoyed the movie for what it is, warts and all. So that's my review of Supergirl. Look forward to the next DC project, and look forward to my next video. This is Hack, sign out.